So last week, I was lucky enough to be invited by the Department of Transport and Planning to look at a mock-up of the newest train coming soon to Melbourne. Today, I'm going to take you through what I saw and give my thoughts on it. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring my GoPro because I have a memory like a sieve, so you'll have to make do with lots of photos instead. What's happening is that Alstom and the Department of Transport and Planning, that I'll call DTP from now on to save time, have built a mock-up of the new Extrapolis 2 train that is coming to Melbourne from 2025. They're designed to help replace Comeng trains, which are the oldest electric units currently running on the suburban network. There are 25 in the first order, but it's a fair bet that more will be built later on. As the name suggests, they're part of the same family of trains as the current Extrapolis 100s that currently run on most suburban lines. So that's the background. Now let's go on to the mock-up. It's located in a big warehouse as a 2.5 carriage setup to show the different carriage configurations. People from various groups and organisations have been invited to take a look, including accessibility groups, bicycle user groups, and rail enthusiasts. There were lots of staff and people from the project team available to answer questions, who were all very helpful and knowledgeable. We were all asked for our feedback through a survey too, which meant that this was all recorded. Starting from the outside, the blue and silver livery looks quite nice. It reminds me a bit of the design on the Siemens trains and has a good balance of colours. One thing that we discussed on the day was these stickers that are above the doors to indicate which carriages have designated spaces for people with a disability, prams or bikes. This is a small but welcome change. Now onto what had a lot of people stirred up when this model was first announced: the cab design and exterior. To be completely honest, it doesn't look quite as jarring in real life as it did in some of the renders. Instead, my main gripe with the exterior is the destination displays. Both the one at the front of the cab and on the sides of carriages are not very easy to read. The font was not very good, and I found the writing too small. I actually think the black background and orange text used on the existing Extrapolis 100 trains to be much better. One suggestion that I had was to locate a display directly above some of the carriage doors, which could also be used in the future to display capacity information. One small but important detail here is the suspension. The current Extrapolis 100 trains have spring suspension, which accounts for their bounciness and sometimes uncomfortable ride. These new trains will have airbag suspension instead, which should be a big improvement and is very welcome. Now onto the interior. Unlike the current Extrapolis trains, these are designed as a single 6-carriage set. This means that, like the new HCMT trains currently running on the Cranbourne and Pakenham lines, you can walk throughout the entire train, which is very useful. We did discover that there are actually doors that can close between the carriages, but it's not clear whether these will be open or closed when the train is actually operating. My reaction to the seats inside was a bit more mixed. They aren't the most comfortable seats in the world, but they do the job. The higher back provides more support, but the cushioning is not very thick, and it reminds me a bit of the seats on the C1 class trams, which isn't a terribly good thing. I don't know if it's the higher backs or if this is actually the case, but it did feel to me like there was not very much room between the seats, especially if you have a bag or two. This was also made more pronounced by the design of the handles on the side, which bent slightly inwards to avoid them protruding into the corridor. Unfortunately, this has just moved the problem to the seats, so if you were trying to get in or out, you're liable to hit your hip on it, like I did a few times. I also found there was a bit of the carriage body that sticks out while you're sitting in the window seat. It wasn't that bad, and some people might like a bit of support to lean on, but I found it a bit annoying. On a more positive note, a lot of thought seems to have gone into making the train as accessible as possible. There are lots of dedicated spaces for people in wheelchairs and other mobility devices, especially in the first and last carriage. We were told that the access way between the seats is the widest of any train in Melbourne, and the doorways are slightly wider at about 1500 millimetres. There are a lot more facing seats perpendicular to the carriage side, which I think is a good thing. It creates more capacity on the train while only slightly reducing the total number of seats. My only gripe with this design is that they are a bit too close together. If you have someone sitting on either side of you, you will get squished. There was a lot of show and tell about the new accessibility ramps as well. These can be deployed from the front door of the first and last carriage to get people who need level access on and off the train safely. Unlike the current Extrapolis trains, they are much better integrated into the carriage body and take up much less room. They're also semi-automatic to make the driver's job quicker and easier with less manual handling. They can also be deployed to accommodate platforms that are actually higher than the carriage and not just those that are lower, as you can see in the photo here. It's also pleasing to see that there are 3 doors for each carriage. A mistake that was made with the Z1 and Z2 class trams by only having 2 doors was unfortunately replicated many years later when the Siemens trains were ordered, with only 2 doors per carriage. So it's good to see that we seem to have continued to learn from these mistakes. The interior passenger information is very good, similar to the HCMTs. There are displays on both sides of the carriage and one above each door, making it easy to see where you are and where you are going, regardless of where you're standing or sitting. Again, a couple of small improvements can be made here, like making it more obvious which stations are being skipped. As you can see in this photo, the grey colour used for these stations not being serviced is not very clear. Overall though, this is a big improvement on the current Extrapolis trains, and while we didn't get to test it out, I was told that the audio in the carriages will be a lot better. This is because of some cool technology that can actually count the number of people in each carriage and adjust the audio volume accordingly. So for example, if there are fewer people in the carriage, the sound levels will be lower.
Everybody get low. Everybody get low. Everybody shake your head to your toe.
With an ANZ credit card, you can tap into round-the-clock security.
While we're on this topic, I did spot these passenger counters built into the body of the train. There's one above every door, as well as one above the entrance to the gangway between each carriage. I was told that this was to count people who move across the train, so the data collected would be able to be narrowed down to individual carriages. Handy if you're showing capacity information, like on many other rail networks. They did say that there was nothing planned for the immediate future, but hopefully this is a sign that the technology is coming to Melbourne soon. The final thing I would like to mention is the facilities for bicycles. It's nice to see more effort going into accommodating bikes on trains in Melbourne, but many other cities still do much better and there is a lot for us to learn. Having said that, the Extrapolis 2 accommodates bikes much better than any other train on our suburban network. There are 4 areas that are designated for use by prams and bicycles, 2 each located in the 3rd and 4th carriages, where there are seats that can be folded up if a bicycle needs to park there. There's also one of these seatbelt-like straps in each of these areas to secure a bicycle if needed, and a sign to show the area. I'm not a big fan of the seatbelt strap. It can be easily hidden and wouldn't feel very secure to park my bike here. I think something more like what V-Line Velocities have, which is a much longer Velcro strap, would be more flexible and secure. It would also be better for larger bikes like cargo and recumbents. There was some comment made about not wanting to accommodate bikes too much because people should be encouraged to use bike parking at stations. While this may work for some trips, there are many trips where people will actually take their bikes for their onward journey from their destination station. This could be if the station is within riding distance of their destination for transport, or for recreation when getting to and from many of the trails around Melbourne that are easily accessed by train. It was lots of fun to go along and see what Melbourne's newest train will look like. As you can see, I also had a lot of fun in the driver's cabin, which had most of its knobs and switches actually operating. There's a lot of new technology and changes in the design, which will hopefully make people's lives easier and data collection more reliable. Like I said, there are things that I think need fixing or improvement, but overall it's a good upgrade from what we have at the moment. And no, I don't actually think it's that ugly. Keep an eye out for when these start rolling out on the Upfield, Cranbourne and Craigieburn lines in 2025, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you'd like to check out all the photos that I took for yourself, there is a link to the Flickr album in the video description below. As usual, I've released them all under a Creative Commons license, which means you're very welcome to use them for free so long as you provide the correct attribution and abide by the other terms of the license. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it and would like to see more, please subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date on future videos. Also feel free to visit my website at philipmallis.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.